Mayor Cohen, would you like to share a few words about the introduction?
Certainly. Thank you, Council President. This is always an opportunity for us to be transparent with the public about the things that we're doing regarding the municipal budget. As most of you know, that is approximately 20% of your total tax bill. That is our responsibility. About 65 is the schools, 15% is the county, and then a little bit of the small amounts that are left over: library, open space fund, fire districts. But the primary three are schools, town, county. So of the portion of the tax bill that you get that we'll be talking about tonight, that is the 20% that we as a council are responsible for running all of the municipal budget on. For the year 2025, the average property assessment comes out to about $122,000. Our equalization rate, as you know, is about 18.83%. If you look at your tax bill, you'll see your assessed value, you know darn well is not the value of your house. It's approximately 18.83%. That is the reason that this township has been targeted by the state for a revaluation, because they're supposed to be at 100%. So while the state will take its, while we're looking to have somebody come in and do that for us, that process may take a while still, but our equalization rate of 18.83% brings your average home value to $648,000. The tax increase that we're proposing for this year amounts to less than 1%. That is consistent with what we've done for the last 8 years. It has averaged under 1%. It is still under 1%. That amounts to $26.90 for the average home, or $2.24 per month for somebody who owns a home at the average. The largest cost increases for the year 2025 over the year 2024 come in two primary areas. Solid waste and recycling. As you know, the township went out for a brand new contract last year. It goes up approximately $1 million each year of the 5-year contract. So $1 million alone is solid waste and recycling. The parking utility, as many of you know, during the COVID period of time, actually prior to COVID, there were 3-year waiting lists for our parking decks. With COVID, that changed dramatically as more people work from home. There people weren't working at all during COVID, and it has not moved back to the pre-COVID levels. So it is costing money to maintain the parking utility. Now, as many of you know, we signed at this council meeting, last council meeting, a new contract with Coach. Coach had announced that it was in bankruptcy proceeding, but we were able to make a new contract with the successor corporation, and so I expect that the decrease that we're seeing this year should be made up by increased revenues coming in from the new contract that we have with Coach. Highlights of this budget for 2025: we have pretty much stable staffing levels other than in the police department. We're adding 1 full-time and 1 part-time person. The full-time person will be supervising and training our dispatchers. That is a public-facing entity that I believe should be at the highest level of training possible. There's mistakes you don't want to occur at that level, and the supervision, I think, would be an important added feature here. The part-time person is going to be working in evidence collection as one of our officers retires. They'll be supervised by an officer, but that will allow us to put an additional officer out on the road where they're needed. We also have room for additional hires in park and recreation as our ice rinks near opening. There's an RFP on the agenda for this evening. One of the things that's asking for is for you to consider putting out an RFP. We have organizations that are interested in coming in and providing a head start to all of our ice programs instead of us doing it ourselves, and that would be a contract that would take up a good portion of the ice and provide us with a steady source of income, making the ice rinks likely to be either break even or profitable almost from its inception. But whether or not we do that will make a big difference in the number of people that are ultimately hired for the rink. If we bring in a company, then we won't need as many people. And since the rinks aren't going to open towards the end of the year, the likelihood of this affecting the 2025 budget is pretty minimal. It's more likely to affect 2026. There are no changes, in fact, some increases in the services from our Parks, Recreation, Senior Center, Planning and Engineering, and our police. As I mentioned, our debt ratio remains extraordinarily low, even including the Board of Education and Fire District debt, which must be reported in the debt that you see on the pages in front of you. It gets separated out when we go to Moody's, and that is one of the reasons why we continue to maintain such a low debt ratio, the reason why the schools would want to even come to us for their financing needs is predicated on the fact that we could save the district in total significant amounts of money, tens of thousands of dollars in interest charges if they otherwise went out themselves to do that. I'm not going to sit here and negotiate or discuss the uses of their money. The mere fact that they use us saves the district significant, and the town, the taxpayers, significant amount of money. Revenue, well, obviously the largest amount of revenue coming into the township is from property taxes, but after that, the two largest sources of income come from energy tax credits. As many of you know, that's money, tax money that comes from the use of our utilities, utility services, PSE&G, all the other utilities, the telephone companies, using property that should be paying taxes. Over 40 years ago, the state took over collecting that money, and despite the fact that all of your taxes went up and that tax revenue should come up to us, the state has kept that flat for almost 40 years. So they keep the amount equal. We will be getting approximately $4 million in energy tax credits. That has not changed appreciably in decades. Unfair, not an argument for us to have here. The other large source of money comes from our host community benefits that we get by allowing the county to use the landfill, which brings us about $3 million a year. The biggest expenses, obviously, we are like the schools, we are a people business, so it comes from our employees and personnel. This includes salaries, most of which is contractual, so we know what those costs are going to be. Our healthcare costs, clearly, as many of you know, we self-insure. Over the last 8 years, we've been able to keep healthcare costs at somewhere between a 2 to 3% increase per year over the last 8 years, almost unheard of in the industry. If you're in the state health benefits plan, they've been going up the last couple of years at double-digit increases per year. And of course, we have pension costs. As opposed to other entities, the pension costs for the township come out of property taxes. We must pay that. There's two major ones, the ones that go to police and fire, and then everyone else. Those are not the state-run pension plans. Those are supported by the township, and we've always made our payments. They are not underfunded, and they are solvent. Almost $4 million this year is set aside for road repairs. That does not include the DOT work on Route 18, does not include the county road work, and it does not include about $400,000 in grants that was given to do Village Drive. Any cost to Village Drive in excess of the $400,000 will come from the $4 million that's set aside for road repairs. We have 5 utilities. The water, sewer, and police are all utilities that are doing well and are profitable. Pool showed a minor loss last year. Keep in mind that large drivers of that is weather. If it's open more, we can make more, and that's really weather dependent. We also have to deal with the cost that minimum wage keeps going up every year. It's been hard, despite all of that, to even find enough staffing, which then limits the number of hours you could be open, which limits the amount of money you could make. So all of these things are interrelated. Chemical costs are up, maintaining the equipment and the system itself, and the debt all caused us to have a minor loss. We expect hopefully with good weather and a more robust number of people working, that we could actually turn a profit this year. The big issue, as I spoke early about, is the parking deck. And again, we were able to buoy that the last couple of years with COVID money, but that's no longer there. So we are hoping that with the coach contract coming through, that we'll be able to be in a much better position on that utility as well. So at this point, the budget is now the council's budget. It is open for your review and for public review. I want to thank our finance staff for working together, again, as always, to put together a fiscally responsible budget. Our administration, of course, all of our directors who are like hawks, making sure that we treat public money no different than if it was their own. And at the end of the day, striking a balance where we have a wealth of services that are provided to the town in a way that's fiscally responsible and controls costs. With a budget of less than 1% increase, I think that this does that. So thank you, Council President.